Hello, friends. I'm Andrea Morris, and welcome to another episode of Spill the Wine podcast, which is obviously about wine. But one of the things that we really like to do with this, in addition to exploring the Beamsville Bench area, is to demystify wine, because so many people are afraid of it and think that they can't enjoy wine unless they know all the terminology or they know like what a nose is or what they're tasting. But reality is, you're never going to know unless you actually come out and do wine tastings and try it. And today we are at an absolutely stellar winery that comes highly recommended by many of the best growers in the area, and also a place that I have been to on several occasions myself, Leaning Post Wines. And today we are here with Ilya and Nadia Senchuk. Welcome to the podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you for having us.
It's my pleasure. I was when I say referencing, we recently did an episode with Thomas Boschelder, and he spoke very highly of your vineyards and your terroir, and said I had to come here, and you were on my list anyway, so it's perfect. So welcome to the podcast. So let's start off by talking a little bit about Leaning Post and how you guys got started, a little history of the winery, if you will.
For sure. So we'd like to say, thank you so much for having us on the podcast. Love it. We like to say Nadia and I are from the grape growing mecca of Winnipeg, Manitoba. So we were not born into wine at all. We're kind of those weird people. I honestly was partway through a science degree at the University of Manitoba. It's another way of saying that I had no idea what I was doing with my life. And then quite literally, I kind of read an article about Brock's winemaking program, kind of into culinary and wine already. And I thought to myself, I love that. I very naively thought, hey, maybe I could probably do that. So moved out here to Niagara and started doing my degree, started working in the wine business. And, and then my girlfriend at the time joined me.
Now.
Yeah, wife now. And she joined me after a couple of years out here.
Absolutely. And after we got married, our pillow talk very quickly became, oh my goodness, if we ever had a winery one day, what would we call it? What would the tasting room experience feel like? What wines would we be growing? Everything like that. And that pillow talk just kind of started to spiral a little out of control. And we knew we wanted to do this. We don't come from money. We aren't from a grape growing family. We just knew that we wanted to do this. And I was a banker at the time and decided to, one night after probably a few bottles of wine, wrote on the back of a napkin some numbers of actually starting a winery. It was the most naive napkin I've ever written on in my entire life.
True.
Did you save it and put it on the wall here?
I wish I would have.
That would have been great, like to have that on the wall when you come in. Here was our little gem of an idea.
But it gave us the impetus, that start, that a little bit of courage that we could do it. And it's just been an amazing ride.
Well, we just kind of figured because at that point when we started looking at properties, I had been in the wine business about 10 years at that point. I was a winemaker, had done some overseas vintages and, again, very naively, but we just kind of thought if a winemaker and a banker can't make a winery work, then I don't know who can, right? So and honestly, that was possibly our entire business plan now looking back. I know we had numbers and we put them up, but really we were more we're going to make this thing work. It's going to be great. And we're going to make it happen. And then so we, honestly, we had actually bid on 3 other properties in Niagara over almost a 2-year period. And none of that had worked out and it didn't happen. And we just kind of shelved it and said, well, I guess it's not for us. Maybe we'll do it another couple of years. Maybe I'll look at some rental properties in the area. And so I started looking again after we had lost out on the 3rd property. And then I was looking literally at rentals and I was like, 11 acres, old house with grapes. That's weird. Why is that under rentals? And then so I called Nadia and said so I found a place. And she's like, a rental? And I'm like, well, it has it's a vineyard, but it's abandoned, but it's really near where we'd love to be. And that just came from that. And then we came down and saw the place and I don't know if Nadia agrees, but I probably in 15, 20 minutes, we were this is probably it, which is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it was. If you would have told us where we would be 12 years, actually 15 years since we bought the
14.
property.
14.
Oh. If you would have told us where we would be today, I never would have believed you. The number of people that said, this is nuts. My mother cried when we bought the property.
That's
and
not the good way.
No, she's just like, if you're that silly and you're going to do it, I mean, like, I'll be with you, but please just watch one movie from the 80s. Remember Money Pit? You know, Tom Hanks falls into the floor. It's just this horror, you know, like, she's like, if you still want to do it after watching that movie, go. So, but we didn't listen. We didn't listen to the naysayers. We were filled with just excitement and the possibilities.
And that's great because it was your passion that got you started, and your passion continues to drive the winery. Because it's almost like you can taste your passion in every glass, because it's like you're putting your heart and soul into it.
Well, that's our hope, like, honestly. So we genuinely, like, we moved, you know, I always tell everybody the short version of everything Nadia just said is, 14 years ago, we moved into a broken down barn and an abandoned vineyard with a 10-month-old in a snowstorm. So we must really love wine. And as a result, like, we just feel like getting that passion out to people, one glass at a time, one story at a time. That's like the fundamental thing that we've believed in from day one. Even when we had no money and, we were making 200 cases of wine, and, I was basically a guy with some, it was kind of a side gig as we were fixing the winery up. All of that, it was because we really believed in this project and just in Niagara wine. We love the area and we love the wines it creates. And that has been kind of the driving force of everything we do. It's always right there. And we just couldn't imagine doing anything else. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Now, when you rented this property, did you have any idea how spectacular it actually was?
No. So we like, it was, the crazy thing is it was a rental. Like, it was basically a triplex with an abandoned vineyard, which doesn't sound right. but it was like an 1860s house that they had turned into a triplex. And then it had 11 acres on it, a vineyard that they had sort of tried to do, but really had given up because, doing a vineyard isn't really a hobby when you're trying to do it. So that's all it was. And then we just saw this beautiful place and thought we could convert it into something really spectacular.
And the funny thing is, when we were buying it, our real estate agent said, "Do you want me to get like soil samples? Do you want?" And Ilya literally went out to the vineyard, kind of like rubbed the dirt between his hands, and he just went, "I feel it. It's going to be great here." And I mean, that led to so many sleepless nights as we started making our first wines from this property, because this area of Niagara is not known for quality grape growing. Until now.
Yeah.
Now it certainly is. But when we bought, that was not the case.
Yeah, nobody was saying 14 years ago about those guys are smart. like people weren't saying that. Because we are on the very western edge of Niagara, right? Like it is still in Niagara, but we're in the little town of Winona. We're kind of the other side of Grimsby. It's fairly narrow here, kind of windswept. We have a lot of lake effect. It's only 1.5 kilometers basically between lake and escarpment here. Like, it's sort of like a very squished, kind of very windswept marine version of Niagara, right?
But you still get the benefits of the escarpment because you have it right there.
It is right here.
Yeah.
So it's the same environment. It's the same general climate, but imagine just a step more lake influenced, right? So, so it's just a little bit cooler and evened out over the year. So again, 15 years ago, nobody was talking the way they are now. Like, a lot of people were kind of like, that's kind of on the edge. Like, are you going to be able to ripen anything? And I just remember thinking, yeah, I know, that's great. And then I was, oh, you meant that like the bad way. Like, it's going to be tough. But to us, we were like, but we love cool climate wines. And you know what? Honestly, now, 14 years later, people are like, wow, with global warming, that's a great idea. But like I said, 14 years ago, that's not what people were saying.
But yeah. Like, to quote Lady Gaga, you were on the edge of glory. Because you
I guess so.
I'm going to use that, Andrea. I'm going to use that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think about that when I lived in Toronto, and I would drive in and you would be the first winery that I would see. And I was like, oh, well, I remember the first time I came down for a wine tour and I had other places scheduled. I was like, well, the next time I come, I'm going to go to that one first. Mm-hmm. Because it was just natural planning a wine trip from Toronto to come here first, start off and with magnificent wines, and then can keep continuing. So yes, you can use that. I think it would be great.
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
that's amazing.
We like to say we're also like at the gateway of Niagara. As people are coming in, start your wine tour with us. Get off the highway early. Traffic in Niagara. Ugh. But you get off and you've got a beautiful glass of wine in your hand. And then, the day starts off lovely.
And your stress levels decrease.
Absolutely. Isn't
Definitely.
that why people come to wine country?
One would think, yes.
Yeah, no, and super friendly people. I mean, we make a big point of that as well. As I know we've talked about this, but we were big believers in this, again, 14, 15 years ago, that wine, you can demystify wine without dumbing it down. Like we definitely believe that the concepts and the beauty of wine are amazing. And rather than making that difficult to understand, you can make the concepts really easy to understand, but you don't have to sort of throw out those ideas. I mean, terroir and all these other things are real things, and they affect the way wines taste. But you don't have to be a master somm.
You don't have to be a wine nerd in order to enjoy a tasting at Leaning Post. Like our house is on the property. We want people to feel welcome. No pretension, no snobbery when it comes to it. Just really feeling welcome and learning. I can take someone who has no knowledge of wine or someone who will call themselves a connoisseur. I always laugh when somebody calls themselves a connoisseur. I'm like, okay, I have no idea where I'm starting from. But, I want people to just feel welcome, to enjoy their experience. And it's not, when a tasting experience with us is not, hey, here's a couple of whites, a couple of reds. It's like, what do you love? What wine, what speaks to you? And then we go through and we tell stories and we talk about the wines, what you're going to smell, what you're going to taste, what I would pair this with. Like I want people, even if they're a novice, to come out of this experience and go, I learned something and I had a really good time.
And also your charcuterie servings are fantastic.
Thank you.
In case you're hungry when you come here, listener, they're absolutely a wonderful complement to the wines.
Yeah, no, and that is like, we want people to have an awesome experience. Like that was our number one thing when we started the winery as well. We actually did before we were open, we already owned the place, and but we weren't yet open, and we were going around to other wineries and just saying like, well, the things we love, and the biggest thing for us was honestly what Nadia said. Like if you come in and whether you're like literally from a restaurant or you're some kind of whether you're a sommelier or a winemaker, or all the way to like when you say, what do you like about wine? And you say, well, I love it because, it just makes me feel good. And you don't even know the details. Any level of person should be able to come in here and leave and say, wow, I had a great time and I learned a little bit. And just a little bit more appreciation about the art and the craft of what we do here at Leaning Post. And that's the goal for anybody, no matter what your level is, to come in and just have a great time.
Because it's so much more than just liquid that has alcohol in a glass. I think sometimes people treat wine or beer or spirits like that, but wine, you can get immersed in something. You can learn, like we talk about mindfulness. I can't meditate. I have too much going on in my mind.
That's what wine is for, yeah.
But that's what wine is for. It's
absolutely
that wonderful mindfulness of just being present and smelling and tasting and relaxing. That's what wine is.
And I think it's also about appreciating the uniqueness of grapes as a fruit, because they're actually the only fruit that can actually taste like other fruits.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and I do think wine is. I mean, again, I'm sure you can imagine by now. I'm sure your listeners are getting the idea that like Nadia and I spend too much time thinking about wine.
Never
enough. However, like I really do think, like I've thought about this a lot, and the fundamental difference between wine and say beer or spirits or anything. I mean, wine is a truly directly agricultural product. Like from even the most commercial wine you will ever taste is 97% fermented grape juice. That's just the reality. One way or another, it's a fancy way. And in our case, our wines are, 99.9% that. And really what it means is that we're basically very fancy farmers. Like there's a lot of steps in between, but fundamentally, there isn't really another drink where you grow something and then you bring it in and then you make the thing almost exclusively out of this one thing from one place in time. It's like, it is like a place and time in liquid in a way that other drinks just aren't. And nothing quite competes with that, because other things you order ingredients, you make them. Here, it's literally a place and time. And so I think that's the unique thing as well, is when you think about it and it's very mindful, then you realize you're presenting a grape variety, but you're also presenting a piece of land. And so when you hear that word terroir, when we talk about all these things, all we really mean is we grew something as a grape grower, as a farmer in one particular plot, and that completely affects how the wine tastes. As you were saying, when people ask, how do these flavors get in to wine? I mean, not to get too down the rabbit hole, but basically grape juice has 4,000 or 5,000 different chemical compounds. Your average other fruit has 400 or 500. There's literally 10 times more flavor compounds in grape juice. And so when it ferments, it's the original magic from 10,000 years ago. Yeast and Chardonnay come together, and they make everything from lemon flavor to oranges to peaches. And you don't have to add any of that stuff in. It's all there. All the pieces are there, and yeast just combines with these pieces and ends up making this amazing, beautiful liquid. Well, that's really all it is.
And that's the artistry behind winemaking as well, that's his job, to bring those flavors forward in the most pleasing way. But when Ilya was talking, and I wanted to tell you a funny story. I don't know if it's funny. It was an emotional story. It was an emotional story. Earlier this summer, I had a wine writer out, and we were doing 10 years of Chardonnay from our property. And I had 10 glasses on my in front of me. And I'll be honest, I got a little emotional. When was the last time you've seen a decade of your life?
Right there in front of you.
In front of you. And the wine writer didn't really understand why I started tearing up.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's your heart and your soul. And like starting from your very first bottles that you did, it's like, and when you're going, is this going to work? Like, do we like, and then to the 10th one where you're like, this does work.
Yeah.
And you're getting so emotional now. And I love that, because it's like, it is such a beautiful story. I'm going to cry because it's like, because it is like, people, the average person doesn't understand how much love and care. And also, while you were talking, Ilya, I was thinking, you never actually hear about a brewery going like, oh my God, we had such a horrible summer and it affected our beer.
Well, that's what I always say. I always say, like, you don't hear people going, oh, it was a bad barley year.
Oh, yeah. Like, you know what? My vodka just suffered because it rained so much.
And you also don't have consumers coming in and saying, where is your barley field?
Right.
You were talking about mindfulness. It's if you can't be mindful, then drink wine. But it makes me think of blindfulness.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, then I wrote down, when you were talking, I wrote down what you said about, wine is a place and time. Like that. That's a great slogan.
Yeah, it is. It has been kind of our core message is, we're trying to trap a place and time in liquid form and get it out to people.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I just was kind of remembering what you just said. I mean, another great example of sort of the big chance we took. I mean, basically when you do something like us, where we weren't buying like a storied vineyard where you had 40 vintages of like great wine. We bought in an area that I thought had all the fundamentals to be great. But unfortunately, I've sort of realized now that like I couldn't really prove that till we're like 10, 11, 12 years in. We're just now. And now it's like, it's definitely too late. You know what I mean? Like, what if it wasn't good? Like, it has turned out amazing. But I'm going to quote my friend Jamie Evans, who's a great friend of ours, and he was a winemaker for many years. And he used to say, nobody talks about bad terroir. And so I was like, oh, well, you're not actually making me feel better. But as it turned out, it's been amazing. It's been such a great journey, and we've loved every minute of it. But, it is the big chance you take. So, did
you have to plant all new grapes when you moved here? Or did you use, okay.
No, we did. Yeah. So it was a complete replant. So that's it was definitely a vineyard. Some wine grapes, as far as we can tell, there was maybe some Maréchal Foch, and then possibly some table grapes as well, or some juice grapes. But there weren't too many wine grapes, and there certainly weren't too many like vinifera grapes, as far as we could tell. But they were not in good shape anyway. So we did have to kind of start from scratch. And that kind of got us into one of the reasons that we bought in this area actually is because Nadia and I are both huge fans of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Those are, among our favorite grapes. It's what we think Niagara is amazing at as well, especially kind of the bench area, West Niagara. And then, so this area being that sort of on the edge, cooler area, that was the automatic choice for us. So when we bought it, we planted about half our vineyard to Chard and Pinot immediately. That was kind of the first thing we did. We cleared the land, planted enough basically that we could get a winery license, did all of that, all the basics, but also the grape varieties that we really wanted. And then have kind of built it from there.
Oh yeah, and I'll never forget, the inspector came in and he was like, "Do you have 5 acres planted?" And Ilya said, "Yes." And he went, "Check." And Ilya went, No. I put way too much time and effort into this. You're going to go to the back and you're going to look.
Well, I was like, because these ticks to even become a winery, it's a really easy box to tick, but it takes 2, 3, 4 years. It's like, do you have 5 acres of vineyard? Are you in a viticultural area? There's a bunch of things. And then, so yeah, when he came, I was like, I just spent almost 3 years getting here. Let's go and see them.
Humor me and go and look at them.
You need to appreciate what the blood, sweat, and tears that went into this. Yeah, exactly. And it's when you're talking about Chardonnay and Pinot being so prevalent in this area, it is because we have such amazing soil in the bench area. So it's why there are so many wineries when you come out here that do just Pinot and just do Chardonnay. Now you do beyond that with some other varieties, which is great because it's that gives people more choice. But anyone that really loves Chardonnay and loves Pinot Noir needs to come out to the bench.
Oh, for sure. And we are still, we do a reasonably wide array of wines, but we figured out somewhere between 70 and 75% Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, depending on the year. So even in overall production, we like to say we're a Chard and Pinot producer with friends. We sort of do a few other things as well, for sure. Yeah. But the core of what we do is those 2 grape varieties.
Because we love Chard and Pinot, that's what really truly ignites the passion. But you can't drink that every day of the week. We're going to be tasting a Syrah later on today, a Riesling. Oh, we love showcasing what Niagara can do. And because our model is, finding unique plots of land from one part of Niagara to the next, it's ooh, we've got some interesting Syrah. Yes, please. Do we have some Petit Verdot? Absolutely. We like to play and have some fun. We have a Sauvignon Blanc vineyard. So that's stuff that just gets us excited. And when someone comes in, we can really, truly find a wine that suits what you love.
That's great. I just keep thinking back to how we started this conversation and your bedroom talk, and I'm just I can picture that going ooh, let's try Petit Verdot.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true. It was a real thing. Those were the kind of conversations we'd have. So.
That pillow talk remains to this day.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. That's true as well. Yeah.
Well, we've been talking so much about these wines. I think we should start tasting them.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to.
So where do we begin our journey?
All right. So first wine we decided to pour for all our listeners, because I'm sure you can see it.
You'll see pictures. Grapes reminds me I should take some.
As Nadia was mentioning, outside of Chardonnay for whites, I think the king of grapes for Niagara is Riesling. Those are kind of the 2 top whites. And I think we absolutely love Riesling here. And we're also very lucky. So outside of our own vineyard, so our vineyard on our property, we decided to name Senchuk Vineyard. It's our last name. And we just, one of the things we do is we do bottle a lot of single vineyard wine. So what that means is basically single source grapes in that bottle. And we love that. When you talk about terroir, all that really means is that we're trying to get a particular plot in the bottle. And we're very lucky that outside of us, there's a lovely vineyard almost basically across the street from us. So we're here kind of right on Highway 8, 800 meters across the street, right at the base of the escarpment. There's a vineyard called Grimsby Hillside Vineyard. And they have lovely older Riesling. And so we decided to start with that wine because it's a beautiful kind of 25-year-old plot of Riesling that just has lovely classic kind of minerality, fruit, all those things we love to talk about in Riesling.
Yeah, beautiful lime leaf, lovely tropical notes. That minerality on the palate is so wonderful. A little bit of residual sweetness, but not so much, just a little bit to make it so delicious on the palate. And the interesting thing about Grimsby Hillside, I remember probably 6, 7 years ago, Paul Franciosa came to the winery. They were looking for better quality growers, and that like, oh, I've never heard of you, Leaning Post. We were still new. They were looking for new growers, and I really want my fruit to be in something good. And we started working with them, and it kind of spiraled out of control from there because Ilya sees great terroir, and he's like, Thomas Batchelder, you've got to get in here. And he's
Kelly Mason,
Yeah.
like a bunch of other wine makers. Yeah, and I did tell Paul that at the time. I was like, honestly, if you have great grapes, I mean, for me, obviously, it's across the street, so for me, it's a no-brainer. But I will call people if you've got some great grapes, and love to kind of show you that. And so, yeah, it did spiral out of control. But now you will see this vineyard on some really great. Like some wineries are using it in some awesome wine, and I think interesting because I really wanted to show this Riesling because I think people have this weird still. It's kind of a hangover, but they think it's going to be some weird sweet thing.
Yes, exactly.
That's going to be really kind of odd and sort of soupy. And as you can see here, like it's lovely, fresh. Technically, it's just slightly off dry, but I like to say everybody my kind of joke, which is not really a joke. It's like it's a dry experience. Like we leave just enough sweetness to kind of balance out the acidity, but it really does finish as a beautiful dry wine.
And the first sip, it comes off as it is very dry. But then, like the more you open it up and keep sipping it, it becomes like less harsh and very and I hate to say harsh, but it's like it becomes like more comforting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you get like that lemon kind of like lemongrass almost maybe,
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's what people don't realize is Riesling can like it just gets a little bit more softness. You know what I mean? A little bit roundness. Because
you have to get used to it yourself.
Yeah. And part of what you're doing here is also like what I love about Riesling is it's got that acidity, but then we do some things in the winery to really make it beautifully balanced. We leave it on lees, which is basically just the dead yeast post-fermentation. But over time, it gives it a really lovely like creaminess, richness, and texture. And all of that is there. And so you're trying to really balance those flavors. So you've got the fruit, and then you've got a bunch of like what I like to say is not fruit. Like a bunch of sort of creamy, good, beautiful flavors that I think really make the wine super interesting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Now, if you were a person that likes sweet Riesling, this wouldn't be up your alley.
Probably not. I will say it does have a little bit of residual.
Just on the very back of the tongue.
Correct. Yeah. So if you would like something really sweet, probably not. But almost everybody else, it's been very interesting because we found this sort of in-between style. And to be honest, most people, even people who are like, oh, I like things sweeter, they've tasted this and thought, oh, you know what? I thought when you said dry, it was going to be like really dry. But it's sort of this beautiful kind of middle ground where it still has a little bit of that sweetness and softness. It's got enough softness.
It really does have that softness.
Yeah, that most people seem to love that. Even people who are looking for something that's slightly sweeter.
And what I find as well, a lot of times someone will come into the winery telling me that they only like sweet wines. And I like, challenge accepted. None of our wines are really, really sweet. But what I find is just expanding people's knowledge base and vocabulary on wine. A lot of times you pour wines that are more fruit forward and where you get all that flavor of the fruit and it tricks your brain to think that it's sweeter than it actually is. That's what I love. You get all the flavor and no guilt with extra sugar.
Right.
Yeah, no, and that's what we try and say. So I will let people know that what we try and do is love educating people, love delivering what people want. But we're huge advocates for cool climate styles of wine. And Nadia and I have kind of realized we will definitely give you like 80% of what you wanted. And then we might give you 20% of something you didn't know you wanted.
Right. Yeah.
But actually, as it turns out, you did. You just weren't sure whether you were gonna love that, and it turns out you really do. And we love doing that, bringing in people where they're like as Nadia said. I mean, she has a great thing because some people come in and say, "I don't like Chardonnay," which is odd to me. But anyway, they'll say a weird broad statement, and Nadia always says,
Challenge accepted.
Mm.
Because it is my life's mission to change people's minds about Chardonnay one glass at a time. I find if you've had a bad experience on something, people are totally fine with like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. No, just because you had one bad California Chardonnay once, sorry. I'm such a Niagara lover. I'm gonna say that, but I want people to try it again and to look and just, maybe you won't, but 95% of the time, I can get people excited about Chardonnay.
Well, we did a podcast with Ron from Wending,
Mm.
"Yeah, great."
and he came up with one of, I think, the most memorable quotes we've ever had, which was, "Chardonnay is the chicken of the vineyard." And he
Absolutely.
said that because I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, you can serve chicken in so many different ways.
Mhm.
And you can make Chardonnay in so many different ways." So to say blanketly you don't like Chardonnay doesn't, there are so many different varietals of a Chardonnay. And like the oak, like non-oak, like what kind of oak, how long has it been in the barrel, like all of those things, and the climate, all and the terroir, it all affects the taste of a Chardonnay.
Absolutely. So my version of that, I have a different food, but it's the same idea. I think Chardonnay is like the pizza of wine.
Okay.
And it's the same idea. Like when people say, "Well, I don't like pizza," I'm like, what does that even mean? Like,
How could you not like
there-
pizza?
Who doesn't love pizza?
Hey,
Who doesn't
love
like
pizza?
chicken?
But the other point is like there are so many different versions of pizza. What are we talking about? Are you talking thin crust? Are you talking thick crust? What are the toppings? Like there's so many different
Yeah.
ways to do it that it's not really a meaningful thing. You might not like really oaky Chardonnay. That's okay. That's a good thing. We've moved away from that. You might want a bit of oak. That's cool too. But there's a lot of different ways. It's just so, as a winemaker, I always say, like, in the end, it's actually not the grape's fault.
Blame the winemaker.
Right.
Like blame the winemaker and the winery. No, for real. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like saying, like, I don't like, I don't know. Like the point is it's up to us as winemakers to get something beautiful in front of you and use our craft and the grape growing to get an amazing wine in front of you. So with that, why don't we maybe
Do some Chardonnay.
Yeah. So we have 2 Chardonnays in front of us. So I thought it might be cool to just show people a little bit of the breadth of Chardonnay. Because again, we were talking about what we say when we say terroir. All that really means is it's kind of like single source coffee. Like this particular bit of these grapes came from a particular spot. So the first one we did in this lineup is what we like to call like a regional blend. It's actually 3 different vineyards all blended together from across Niagara. And so what we like to show is kind of that's a more regional, like that's Niagara Chard. And then the second one is our Senchuk Vineyard Chard, which is our very, very top white wine. And it is exclusively from our vineyard right on the property here, and best barrels from the best kind of spots in our own vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of like our ultimate kind of expression in a glass.
And what year is this Chardonnay? The first one we're trying?
So they're actually both 2021.
Okay.
So amazing vintage. I'm going to just put this out there as well. For us, 2021, it was one of the most difficult vintages to make wine in my entire career as a winemaker. However, for us, honestly, the wines are amazing. We are in this cool little pocket here in Winona, and the wines we produced in 2021, honestly, are really amazing. They were just not easy to make. That's what I like to say. It was a ton of work. We worked till crazy amounts of time, but it was awesome.
And 2021 separates good winemakers, ones that really, really care, from ones that maybe just recipe wine make. So like. And there's such a wide variety in between. But this regional blend of Chardonnay, I love Chardonnay. Beautiful, like grilled pineapple. There's this lovely, like salted caramel creme brulee on the palate as well. Lovely minerality. Such a stunning wine.
It really is.
Give me, I'll tell the story. So at the beginning, when we first started dating, I was like, I don't know if I love Chardonnay. And he was like, well, we're going to have to put a stop to that. First night, he made me bacon carbonara. Next night, he made scallops. Third night, he made lobster. I didn't want to tell the man I was in love with Chardonnay, but I think he could see it on my face at
She
that
just wanted me to
point.
keep cooking.
So good. But that's what I love. So like sometimes like it's about that beautiful pairing. What do I want with this? I want anything from poultry, chicken. I want creamy pastas, anything from the ocean. Just stunning to see how that texture just it just rolls off my palate. I love Chardonnay, and this one is no exception. This is the one that I tend to open more often than not. 10 months in French oak, so not a ton of oak. It's that nice step from an unoaked Chardonnay on your way to our single vineyards. This is, when people tell me they don't like Chardonnay, I go unoaked first. And then when they go, oh, this is really lovely. And I go, let's go. We're going into Chardonnay. But I don't want to get them crazy overly oaked, right? So this is a beautiful wedge. You think you didn't like it. You just don't like bad Chardonnay.
Yeah,
right.
We like to call this one the gateway drug. So
we're back on that gateway thing again.
It is the gateway wine though. And for what I love about this too,
or the edge of Chardonnay.
Oh, we are absolutely, absolutely. I love it. And what we also love about this is it's a great spot to sort of quality price here is crazy. So this wine is $30.
What?
And, yeah, exactly.
That's
and
so wonderful.
And it just gets you. And again, it's got that lovely midway point of creaminess and balance, but isn't overly heavy. So if you're thinking, oh, I want something kind of fresh, it's got that. If you want something creamy and rich, it's got a little bit of that too. So that's what we're trying to do. And especially this kind of gets people the idea of the kind of Chardonnay we truly love, which is truly cool climate, but that doesn't mean you're giving up on that sort of richness. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
you're
because it keeps coming.
Yeah, it keeps coming. You're just adding to it. I love to say you add, everything that Nadia said, and then add stone and acid and creaminess.
And a little vanilla now. The more I'm drinking it, the more the vanilla's coming in. And it's just, but that pineapple that you mentioned was right away.
It's right
it was
there.
but not just pineapple, but you said the grilled pineapple. Yeah.
Exactly.
Little char.
Yeah, with some shrimp next to it.
Exactly.
It's that was also charred
stuff
next to the pineapple. It's just,
totally.
This is a beautiful Chardonnay.
And you don't feel guilty about opening it on a Tuesday night.
No.
Yeah, and it's right there. And again, this is what I try and say about cool climate Chardonnay. So what's amazing to me about this wine is we just talked about all these great flavors. If you tasted this with us right now, you would definitely say this is a pretty full-bodied white wine. It's 12.5% alcohol. So on top of everything else, you aren't dealing with these really heavy alcoholic things that are coming out of hot climates. We can do this thing where we make amazing, full-bodied, full-flavored wines that are moderate in alcohol. That's what's amazing about cool climate. So when Nadia and I say we're big advocates, that's probably number one is people assume that if it's lower in alcohol, that somehow means, I don't know, less flavor or less body. But I try and say it's just all of that. It's just less alcohol. We are able to achieve a level of fullness and richness at a much lower alcohol. And especially with global warming and everything that's happening, if anything, Niagara is likely to be even a greater destination because we can do that in a way that sort of sunny or hotter places are having trouble with. Now, a lot of places are, when I see 14.5 or 15% alcohol Chardonnay, I think, what the heck's going on? Whereas we can do 12.5, 13. Our biggest ones are maybe 13.5, maybe. That's kind of us pushing alcohol. But when you taste it, you wouldn't know that. And that's my favorite thing. It's all natural and beautiful and rich. So.
It's really, really wonderful. And at 12.5, you can do 2 bottles a night instead of 1. Perfect.
And our goal is, again, we want people to love the wine. Again, you're not sacrificing anything.
No.
That's our biggest thing. I think people think that they're somehow going to sacrifice if it's lower, but instead we're just, all the flavors there. And as you said, you don't feel guilty about having another glass. You always want another glass. That's my biggest thing with wine, for real. I think that sometimes there are wines out there that are very impressive for 3/4 of a glass. And those wines drive me crazy because by the time you get to the bottom of that glass, you realize that, man, I'm tired. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to go drink something else. I never want our wines to do that. I always want you to go, wow, I finished that. And you know what? Kind of want a little more. Maybe could I have just like a little, like another half glass, maybe another 3/4. Okay, give me a full glass.
I know.
Like, that's what I really want wines to always be. They want to be friendly, beautiful, accessible, but not boring.
Like they want to hang out with you and watch a movie.
Totally.
Like, can
Totally.
we stay for the whole movie?
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, this is a 4-hour movie. Can you go get another bottle of me? And
Yeah.
like I gotta see how
we'll
this
watch the
ends.
second movie. It's a series.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
I feel like binge watching this shit. And hence the term binge drinking.
Yeah, wow.
But no, it's I will have to say that this is an absolutely beautiful Chardonnay. And also to the listener, when you come out and do wine tasting, it's really important to never chug your glass because you're missing what happens with the wine. Because I've seen that happen when I've taken people that have never done a wine tasting and they drink the whole glass at once. It's like, no, really, every sip tells you a little bit more about the wine.
So whenever somebody comes into the winery and they do that, I always use this analogy. So let's go back to like if you've had a shot of tequila, you want to, it's about the alcohol consumption. It's not necessarily about savoring those minute differences from one tequila to the next. You've never been to a tequila tasting, or I have.
Yeah,
Have you?
Actually,
Cool.
wine and tequila turns into better stuff.
Okay.
But at the lower end, what you say, all scans.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
But what I say is, for me, it's bringing that mindfulness back in. I say, you know what? Okay, I want you to remember what you just tasted. Now, the second time, I want you to follow me as I'm doing it. I want you to take a sip and just bring a little bit of air, or like mouthwash. Really coat your mouth with the wine. Now swallow. It is so much more of an experience. I never realized that doing my certified sommelier, I would now do that with water. My God, orange juice. You go to California, you go to Florida, have some freshly squeezed orange juice. I'm doing that with orange juice because you taste more. So those wines, it's so much more of an experience when you really savor it and enjoy.
Yeah. And also always, we say this on every podcast, but everyone has a different palate. Mm-hmm. So the things that we're all talking about in tasting, you could come here and not taste any of that. Or taste something, but it also opens up a great conversation. It's like, oh, you know what? That's interesting. And then you might taste it the next time because it's like everybody's got some unique ideas and unique taste buds. And so it's like, yeah, your adventure is completely different than mine would be.
So I'll tell you a funny story. So I did a tasting with a restaurant group yesterday. And he's like, I'm getting this fresh cedar on the Syrah. And I'm like, and I smelled it. I'm like sauna. I've never gotten that before. And we were just laughing. But sometimes you get those weird things and you riff off of each other, but you're like, yes. Oh, but going into a warm sauna, that smell, it elicits a response.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I always say. I love that because to me, there are a basic set of flavors that everybody's going to pick up. You're going to get green apple and Riesling. You're going to sort of get peach or pineapple in Chardonnay, broadly speaking.
Sometimes apricot.
Yeah, exactly. But outside of that, then it, like what Nadia just said, what it actually becomes is experiential. Mm-hmm. It becomes this thing we've been joking about this.
It tastes like my grandmother's kitchen.
That's right. Yeah, when I was
freshly baked apple pie.
Yeah, totally. All that. Yeah. So it elicits a memory. That's what I love about wine, especially. And so we love, if you'll read some of our notes, we go everything from, yes, there's the peaches and all that and the usual things. But I was a really big advocate very early on. I was like, you know what I want to do when we open the winery? Again, pillow talk. We were talking about this. But I want to do experiential tasting books. I was like, I want to write about a wine new bicycle, Christmas morning, came down the stairs. As a description of how the wine made me feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to do that kind of thing. not just like the specific flavors, but like how does it make you feel?
And we have one that we did all of the tasting notes, and I pushed my chair back and I just put my nose in the glass and I went, Ilya, this is Heathcliff running after Catherine in a foggy moor. This is big. This is tortured. This is epic. So the funny thing is, so if we have anyone who's, like millennials, they don't understand that I'm talking about Wuthering Heights.
Exactly.
So I have a millennial reference. This is the Red Room in 50 Shades of Grey. And then everybody gets it.
So no, we're big. Long story short, we are big advocates for trying to get the language of wine to mean a little more to everybody, because it's true. It is experiential. like we
I'm just thinking of that Red Room.
Yeah,
now.
well,
like,
But it's big.
Yeah,
It's tortured.
Yeah.
I don't know about epic, but but yeah, no,
it's fan fiction
yeah,
wine.
it is. We love that. We love that. And as another example of that I always love to give is we have, so for our sparkling wine, we really used it well because I think it's true. We did all the flavor descriptors, and then Nadia's bit was, she's like, and it's like dipping a lemon biscotti in a cloud.
Oh.
And then I was like, with unicorn dust. And we were like, yes, that's what it tastes. Which seems crazy. And then everyone tasted like, that is what it tastes like. Oh. So we love the idea that it is about a feeling.
I've had
it's
that,
about
and it is...
eliciting a feeling, for real. And that's what we love about wine, is it elicits feelings. And I do think in a way that other drinks just don't. So I think that is why we love it and why we continue to do that. So
and it's also that excitement when you've got a bottle that you want to share with somebody that you know loves wine as much as you do, and you're like, I know that you're going to love this.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Totally.
I have some friends that are really into Pinot Noir, and so whenever I get a really good Pinot, when I go to a new winery, I'm like, oh, you guys, I have to come over, or you have to come over to my house, and I have to like share this with you.
It's a reason to get together.
Yes, and it's also like when people are experiencing that and like, oh my gosh, like I do American Thanksgiving every year, and I this year had a table full of people that were all like into wine, and so we each brought a bottle, and it was just like this amazing thing of people going like, oh my gosh, I love this, I'm going to go to this winery. Oh my gosh, I taste this, I taste that, and just this whole group of 11 people that are just around the table all talking about wine was just a beautiful experience, and also the food complemented everything. It was perfection. And like that Chardonnay is perfection in a glass.
Oh, thank you. No, and I think that is what wine is about. It's about stories, it's about people, and it's about places. And that's why, despite, the whatever that quote is, the rumors of the death of wine are highly exaggerated. I think wine, it's like saying that, do you think people will want to ever eat together and drink together? I don't know, since people. Yeah, I always believe that, and wine is part of that. It's like a fundamental sort of food group if you're really into it. And I just really believe that. So I actually wanted to just show you this other wine too, largely because this is a great example in the glass of what this whole winery is about. This is our top Chardonnay Senchuk vineyard. The reason I love pouring these side by side is even if you don't have to be like, I think my job as a winemaker is you don't have to be a master sommelier or somebody who's been drinking wine for 40 years to understand that these two wines are different. And when you think about it, same vintage, same winemaker, same winery, and you taste these two wines side by side and you go, wow, that wine it tastes completely different from the last one. Why is that? It's because of where the grapes are grown. And that is terroir. It's almost that simple. Like it seems so simple, but it is. And it's my job to translate to that to you, not in like a super subtle way, in my opinion, in a way that like anybody can walk in our door and taste 4 Chardonnays and realize, wow, I just had an experience where they were all different. Nadia convinced me suddenly I love Chardonnay, which is great. And then, and they're all different. It's because of where the grapes came from. And then suddenly the whole way wine is, I think, changes in people's minds. They suddenly realize like why we do this, why we say, hey, this vineyard is from here, but this one is from here. That's the fundamental part for me.
Now, I want you to tell the story about your use of oak and what your role as a winemaker is. Because always people ask about oak, especially when we're talking about chard. So, Ilya, take it away.
Well, I just think fundamentally, like you can see this wine really different from the last one. A little bit richer, fuller, kind of creamier, more dense. But you'll notice that the interesting part is you don't really lose any of the core like mineral and all those things. There's just more of everything. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
that's my fundamental thing. But for me, I think I know what Nadia is alluding to here. Like I think of like people always talk about Chardonnay and oak, but I think oak is like the frame on a work of art. I'm like the gallery guy. Like if I'm doing my job well, then I'm putting it in a beautiful frame, setting the lights, doing the whole thing. And if I do it right, we're actually not talking about the frame. Like the hope is when you go into a gallery, you're not talking about the frame around it. You're saying that is a beautiful work of art in the middle. And so I feel like oak is that, especially with Chardonnay. If you're a judicious winemaker, if you use it correctly, it's the way to present Chardonnay and the terroir, the place, in its best light. It's like the makeup, it's the all of that.
Like
but
the
when
pedestal.
it's the pedestal, but it isn't. It's the base, but it isn't the wine itself. And I think there was a time, maybe about 20 years ago, where people kind of lost that part of it and started.
It was about the biggest,
It was the biggest,
goldest, gaudiest frame that you could put around.
yeah, and it became sort of almost more about the frame. And I think finally, I love that just generally now, because we're moving towards styles, that they're not about that anymore. It is about the grape and the place. And so I really feel like that's the fundamentals of what we do here is that.
It's really, it's so different than this one. I mean, I don't get the pineapple or any of the
No.
smokiness, but it's also just like, it's so comforting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I find it to be like, like you're talking about flavors, it's like almost there's like a buffet of flavors in here that I can't like quite define at some point, but
So for me, this wine, you've driven for a long way. You're at the beach. You can smell the beach in the air. I think that is what it is. It just makes me happy. It's taking me to a beautiful place. There's that little bit of saltiness, or you've just come out of the ocean and you lick your lips. There's that little bit of saltiness. You can smell it in the air. That's what this wine does. And it brings me to a beautiful place.
No, and it as I was saying before, it's like imagine taking the last wine and then turning it up to 11. Does that make sense?
Like these go to 11.
Yeah. Why only 10? Because it goes to 11.
It goes to 11, yeah.
That's sort of like a Spinal Tap
There we
reference
go.
for everybody.
Ah.
I love that is that it's just more. You didn't lose anything. You
No.
only gained. So this is just more density, more richness, more flavor, but also more acidity. As Nadia was saying, more sort of almost salinity. Like there's a beautiful.
There is, yes.
So all of
Mhm.
those things, and
That-
again, that's what we talk about when we get excited by wines, and the purpose of having a single vineyard expression. And admittedly, paying more money, but is to get that more complexity and power and interest. And these are the sorts of wine, particularly this second Chardonnay, that will like last forever. Like as an example, that's the part where I'm very gratified by, because again, we're sort of, we're a good 12, 14 years in now. We're not moving anytime soon. So we're working with the vineyard that we have. So beautiful, just like core of fruit. And it really just shows why we create these expressions. Does that make sense? Because they really are different wines, which is, and that's the real point. I mean, when anyone walks in and wonders why maybe we make, like when you come in, you will see quite literally like 6 Chardonnay, 7 Pinots. It'll be about half the list. And people sometimes ask us, why so many things? It's because they are fundamentally different wines. And that's really when we talk about that, that's why we create them. So.
And that's like what's so cool about wine, because each bottle is so completely different than the bottle next to it, even though it's the same type of wine.
That's why people devote their entire lives to wine.
And have bedroom talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's why we're as crazy as we are. Yeah,
I mean,
for
I
sure.
dream about wine, no kidding. But it's like, but seriously, every time I do a wine tasting, it's like I feel like I've learned something and I've had a new adventure. Like everything is new to me, and I will say, listener, I started off on my wine journey not knowing anything about wine, but the more I drank it, the more I learned. Like even just learning a little bit about by some of the terminology. Not that helped me, but it was also just like exploring what I liked. and what my tastes were. And it's like, it's a beautiful journey.
Oh no, it's unbelievable. And that's what we always encourage. Like there's really almost what you just said, like you can distill it down. There's only kind of two rules, which is, go with what you like, but then also be open to trying something new. And that is really all, like those two things together make sure that your wine journey is amazing. As you were just saying, like you want to open yourself up to always trying something new. So you go through this journey and over time, you'll see yourself maybe discovering things that you didn't know you liked, which is really, that's the part of the wine journey that I love seeing. And you don't have to do all kinds of fancy classes. I mean, you can, it's fun. I love it. I'm a bit of a wine nerd. I'm sure you figured that out by now. And so is Nadia. But on the other hand, you can, I know people who, as an example, like I will talk with them and then I find them just as knowledgeable as anybody who took any classes. They work in hospitality, and then I'll talk to them and realize, oh, you literally took not a single class. You have just been serving wine for 20 years, tasting wines and learning from people, and like kind of you're a sponge and talking about it, and you learn so much. And I think that's important too, is like there's not really an intimidation. You try stuff, you learn, and you're probably going to get something wrong, or you're probably going to try something you didn't love. And then on that way, in that weird sort of winding journey, you're going to try something that's going to blow your mind. And then you're going to have this epiphany and realize, wow, I love that. And I just had an amazing experience I wouldn't have had if I didn't try.
But everybody has that one wine, like that spoke to them, that went, that aha moment. Oh my God, I actually really love this. I want to learn more. So the only thing I would say to that, Ilya, if you are at the start of your wine journey, always be open to trying new things. Never shut the door to the possibilities. If you like a Chardonnay from one producer, try what else they're doing. Try a grape variety that you've never heard of. Try something in a new way, or maybe a natural style. You never know if you're going to love it, but you will 100% never know if you never try.
And also try it again a couple of years later, because your palate changes. Like everything, as you continue your wine journey, what you didn't like at the beginning, you might embrace like 3 or 4 years down the road. Always keep an open mind and an open liquor cabinet. So this is so interesting to talk about our palates changing, and we're just so passionate about wine, the three of us, that we have kind of reached almost the end of this episode. However, you do have some spectacular reds. So we are going to do a part 2 with Leaning Post.
Take that, Thomas.
And that's right, Mr. Boschelder. You're not the only one that gets a double. So listener, if you are a big fan of reds, then stay tuned for our next podcast episode. But for this one, I want to say, like, I'm just so thrilled with you and with Nadia and Ilya. And thank you so much for taking this time to talk about Leaning Post and your fantastic wines. So listeners, be sure to visit our show notes, because there's going to be a recap of the wines that we've tasted. And we'll also have links to the website so that you can come and be on the edge of glory with Ilya and Nadia at the winery. And also, please don't forget to like and follow Spill the Wine. It's important that you tell all your friends about it so that we can continue to grow our audience and get more people coming down here to the bench area. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Spill the Wine Podcast, and Instagram, Spill the Wine _podcast. So if you have any questions or you have any suggestions for other wineries you'd like us to visit, or you want to know more about the wineries we've been to, just reach out to us there and we'll be happy to help you. And also, one more thing, if you're planning a trip to this area and you want to know where to stay or you want to know what else you can do, then visit niagarabenchlands.ca. There'll be tons of information there, and that'll open the door to you for this amazing area. So you can come out here and go to restaurants, go to more vineyards, and just really make this your home. So for right now, we would like to say cheers, and we'll see you at the next episode.